is mobility? What is the definition? Here we have two pictures of Shyama. One, she is doing, I suppose one would call it mountain pose with the leg out, Tadasana, with her leg out, and the other she's holding her foot, Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana, so head to nose pose, but she's standing upright. One we would look at and go, one is active, the other is passive because she's holding the foot. So the one would be an example of mobility of the hip joint and the other would be flexibility. But what does that mean, right? If we look at the poses and we understand anatomy around the pose, we'll understand what's actually going on. The idea out there is that it's much more healthy for Shyama to do the active version where her leg is floating out. If she holds her leg, then that's not as good for her. But again, that goes back to exactly what I've been saying is we cannot tell what is good or bad for a whole group of people in a particular pose, except without looking at the individual. Active, what does it mean, right? Okay, so really simply it can mean we're not using our hands, because this is what it is, because passive stretching is when you have support when you are stretching, okay? Active stretching, I suppose you use the word, people don't really use that word, they use the word mobility. But two different things are happening here, right? When we look at Shyama with her leg floating out front, if you turned her, so she's standing like this, and this is her leg out front. If she was sitting down like this, her legs floating out in front of her, like a boat pose, right? So her quads are having to work hard in a strength way to hold her leg up there, right? When we look at Shyama, when she's holding her foot with her hands, she's supporting her leg, so her quads do not have to work at all, right? So what is happening in this pose is that Shyama's hamstrings on the back of her leg are being stretched. If we flipped her on her back, it would be a passive hamstring stretch, okay? Supine hamstring stretch with your hand or your leg, and we would be stretching hamstrings. On the other side, Shyama's hamstrings might be being stretched a little bit, but not so much, because if you see the angle, if you flipped her on her back again, it would be less than 90 degrees. Her leg is back like this, okay? So only at 90, and actually for Shyama, because she's flexible, round about here is when she's going to feel a hamstring stretch. So the two positions are completely different, depending on what we want from the particular pose or what you're trying to achieve in your class. If we were focusing in on hamstring stretching because we wanted to do more of a hamstring, more of a challenging, shall we say, hamstring pose later on, then the pose where Shyama is holding her foot and stretching her hamstrings would be much more beneficial in terms of warming up her hamstrings. We'll talk about that in a little bit, right? If we were working no, both of them are absolutely fine. Don't get me wrong. I'm just trying to explain the difference between what people think mobility is and flexibility. They're two totally different poses, these. If we're going like, come on, bring it on, let's make those quads cramp, okay? We're going to do pistol squats next. For whatever reason that Shyama isn't holding her foot, that's also fine.